The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically antagonizing. Join the movement.
I'm going to say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
If you are not moving forward and exploring and learning and discovering, you are falling backwards. We want peace, and we want a future that trends with less violence.
Didn't know what time it was, the lights were low.
Know thy enemy, know thyself. And if you are deceived in your own arrogance and your own dominance of the past, that what you did in the past is sufficient to win in the future, eventually you're going to be a dead man. And this Constitution that America has is the best hope of humanity. We have the creativity. God has given us the brains to create our future, to build it. The way to do that is not to ignore a new domain and new technologies. How do we use this knowledge God has given us to glorify God and not let evil people use it as a weapon against good people? We don't have to be victims. Technology does change fate. All right, everybody. Cam, welcome to Space Revolution, and thank you for being my co-host. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you doing? And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, this is going to be fun. And so this whole series in the Space Revolution, we've talked about technology. We've talked about, our approach as a human race to technology, how to shape it into something that brings peace and prosperity and health. And today I'd like to just touch on a couple of comments and suggestions that you had to really answer some questions. These are very common questions I get all the time about time travel, about outer space, and about inner space. And today we're going to talk about how those are related. And you are the perfect co-host for this, because this ultimately comes down to the fact that if we, in the intro, you hear me say, know thy enemy and know thyself. The rest of that saying from Sun Tzu, of course, is, and in 1,000 battles you will not lose. But in life, knowing your enemy, and oftentimes we have met the enemy and it is us, and then know yourself, which is understanding how human beings think, how we act, the human nature, which doesn't change over time. That's why this is going to be so fun for us to banter back and forth about these ideas and how they're interrelated. So we're gonna kick it off with the first topic, So why don't you state your question that you had for me? You've mentioned it both at GARTS and then as we prepared for this show. But why don't you state the question like you'd like to state it, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about what I know.
All right. So when we were at GART, I can't remember which GART it was, but I flat out asked you, is space real? And you said yes. And I was like, okay. So then my next question was, what is space? So from my perspective, I have theories on what space is. I've been, I guess you could say, indoctrinated in a way, but I've learned about space from when I was a young child. I went to space camp when I was like 9 years old. I learned about the solar system just like most children did. But my general question is, what is space?
Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of show a little chart that kind of helps people realize that space is everything that God has created in our universe, both big and small. Okay, so again, you can define any word to mean anything you want, and in fact, in this slavery we live in this world, where the administrative state and the world, a new world order has tried to enslave us. They've made words mean the opposite of what they should mean,
Yes.
so we don't need to banter about the definition of space. But what I want to do is just show something real quick here that kind of helps people think about where we sit with regard to space. Because when we say the word space, the space revolution is not just going up and out into the stars. The space revolution is about understanding what's up and out and what's down and in. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm going to do here. And here's the I'm going to share this, and then you can tell me when you can see it.
Okay.
And then we'll start talking about this. It's going to be a lot of fun, though. So here we go. I'm adding it to the stage. Okay.
All right.
Now, can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here we are, and this blue little oval at the bottom here is kind of where we're at, and I'll make that 0 here. Okay. So we're at 0. So here's the size of a human being, a dodo bird, a beach ball, a giant earthworm, a sunflower. So this is kind of the existence we live in right now. And I'm going to take us to outer space, because that's what most people think when they think of the word space. But space revolution is about more than that. But let's go out first. So here's what you're a part of as a human being. And, you go out in size, and you have elephants, you have the blue whale, Statue of Liberty, and then we kind of keep going out, the pyramids. And then you have, even bigger and bigger things, like West Virginia, California, Pluto, the different planets. Okay. Asia, look how big Asia is. Yeah. And then we keep going out. We're out to, the different Saturn, Jupiter, to Sun. And then we go out further and further, the Andromeda. We keep going. And now we're getting into the belts. The distances is showing. And look, as we get out further and further, all of this, the nebulas, the pillars, you see, remember these pictures like from the James Webb Telescope of the pillars of creation right here up in the upper right. And so I'm going all the way out now. Okay. And look how far out we're going. Andromeda galaxy coming up. Okay. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay. So this is way out. That's the known universe. And I'm here to tell you the known universe we know already is not the whole picture. This is just the tip of the iceberg. You are a part of all of this, and we'll zoom back down. Okay, you're a part of all of this, and we'll make the big point here in just a second. And so now we're going to go to inner space, or what people will call inner space, and we go down to the size of an inch and then an ant, and we're going down. Okay, we're getting smaller and smaller. Okay, and soon we get to what we consider atoms. Okay, but then there's more. Okay, what's even more smaller? Quarks. Okay, this is getting into quantum, which we'll talk about. Look how far it is from a top quark at negative 27. And now you got to go to negative 30, negative 31, negative 32. We are moving as fast as we are moving out. And now you're down into the quantum, the fabric of the quantum at negative 35. Wow. And again, believe me, that is not even as far down as it goes. This is just our known knowledge. That now I'm going to zoom back out to where we are. Look at how much distance there is between a quark or an atom and the basic quantum element or radiation waves. So we're going to go back to 0 now, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what we're talking about. So here we are. You are part of outer space, to as far out as the known universe, and to the inner space that is actually further than even the furthest outer space when you take a look at proportional distance. And you are a part of all of that. And here's the thing that's amazing is you're not just a part of it, but every cell in your body is a part of it. You are made up of vibrations, and you are made up of wavelengths. And the existence that you experience right now is a fabrication of what your eyes and ears and brain have been designed to perceive. But it is all interconnected from the smallest particle out to the entire universe. And both of those boundaries you just saw are not the end of the story. It shows how little we know about space. But when I say space revolution, this is what I'm talking about, because it's about health as you get down into the molecular level of your body and your brain and the wavelengths and your vibration. And it connects to the outer space and what we learn as we go out there and take a look at how the rest of the universe is put together. So there's my definition of space and why the Space Revolution is a series that has infinite content, as long as you can make it sexy every time.
No, I totally understand that. Few things that I got from that diagram that you just showed us was we're so small in a sense. Like, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. We're small in size, but it's relative though, because when you get to the quantum level, we're beyond gigantic. We're as, I guess on scale, we're as big as the known universe to the quark level. But the fascinating thing to me is we matter so much. Like, I don't think that's one thing that I struggled with before I got what people could say started to wake up or anything like that, was what is my significance? I've always believed in God. I've always believed in God. I don't think that I always knew God. I think knowing God and believing in God are two different things, because you can believe that space is real. You can believe that the quantum level is real, but really knowing it and understanding it and being able to have a reason to explore those ideas, I think that's such an important thing, especially in this time period in our world, is because, like you were saying, with the deep state and the powers that should not be, they've been trying to convince us for so long that we're these tiny little dots. We're basically ants that can be stepped on and another ant's going to come around. Or if all of humanity gets wiped out, or whatever they were going to do, like they were going to cut it down to like 30% or 20% of the population, maybe less than that, like 1% of the population, they were going to kill us all off. It wouldn't matter, but that's not true. This planet would not be anything that it is today without all of God's creation on it. And something that I got from when I was rewatching the logistics episode in episode 8 was you were talking about how I wrote down the quote. I'm not going to read the whole quote, but you were talking about the purpose of your series. And one of the things that you said was that you wanted us to be kind to Mother Nature, kind to Mother Earth and the solar system, because you considered Mother Earth and the entire solar system the playground that God gave us to do these things. And that made me so happy, because I was just like, that's it. That's the thing I've been saying on my show for the last few weeks. And I've had this as a point of my life for the last, probably since 2021, I think was when I truly had that moment of knowing God. I just looked up, I looked directly at the sun. I did it without glasses on. I looked directly at the sun, not for too long, because that will hurt your eyes, but I was looking at the sun, and it was this voice that I had heard the voice before, but it was never that loud. That was basically just like, this is why you're here. You're here to look up at the sun and wonder. You're here to look out into the cloud and try to figure out what your job and your purpose here is in this moment, because it's a tiny little blip on the entire the entire book of history. You're just a tiny little dot on the page, but all of us collectively together can change the course of history.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. And I agree with you that we may be small in the arc of history, but we are infinitely significant. And so what this kind of brings up a point about what kind of mindset should we have as we go into this journey of discovery, this space revolution. And when you read any leadership book that's worth its weight, you'll read about the fact that if especially in the portion of decision making, making a decision to do X or to do Y, you have to start with an opinion. You can't start with facts, because facts are what can be deceive you. Facts can be wrong. You can think they're right and they're totally wrong. Facts are almost impossible to say, okay, I'm standing on solid ground. Why? Because we know so little. But good decision makers understand they have to start with an opinion. Okay, this is the fun part, because everybody has a different opinion. Anybody can have an opinion, and there's lots of jokes about opinions. But actually, that is the logical place to start in thinking logically about what you are going to do, the decision of what you're going to do. And so I'll give an example. My opinion, and this has to be coupled with the humility, though, that you don't know everything. Because if you knew everything, then you could say, okay, here are the facts, and therefore here's the conclusion. But we don't know anything, okay? So you start with this humility and say, okay, I need an opinion to start. And then I need to prove that opinion true or false. Yes. That's how you start. So my opinion is that God created this universe because he loved us so much that he wanted to give us an infinite playground to discover, to learn, to be creative, to be intellectually curious, and to make life better for one another, to love. So God made this universe infinite so we can love, and we are infinite creatures. So that's my opinion, okay? And I start there. And with that starting point, now I can start making some decisions about, okay, what are the facts? Well, somebody tells me that, you can time travel. Okay, so show me the facts. I'm humble enough to know that I don't know whether you can or can't. Prove it to me. Show me. Okay. And even when they show me, I'm like, okay, what did I just see? Did I see something real, or did I see something fake? So starting with an opinion based on one of the gifts God has given each of us, and that is we are incredibly intuitive as human beings. Most of us can smell a rat in a millisecond. Yeah. And the longer you stay with somebody, the quicker you can tell whether they're somebody you can trust. Now, everybody's flawed, so you have to be forgiving too, because all you have to do is ask my wife, and you'll find out that I am woefully imperfect. And if she wasn't forgiving, we wouldn't be making it right now. So, anyway, back to the central point is you have to start with an opinion, and now with an opinion. And the humility that we don't know shit, Yep. And everything that we have learned as a human race is good. We build on that, but we build on it with this healthy suspicion that maybe it's wrong. Okay. And that's why I love Badlands Media and what John Harold has started. He started a movement of people that are willing to always ask, is that fake or is that real? And when they're saying, is that fake? They aren't saying it is fake, or maybe they are, but they're doing it to get people to think on their own. What is their opinion? And then what facts support that opinion? And if the facts support an opinion, you always keep an open mind. Like Burning Bright says, bicameral thinking. You always keep an open mind that when those facts become wrong, or we discover that they're wrong, you have not sold your soul down the river on an opinion that happens to be false. That this is where the humility comes in. It's really important. So that's why I want to bring this up, because as we talk about outer space and inner space, and we talk about time travel, it's in the context of we don't know what we don't know. We have an opinion, and in my view, the most important opinion on planet Earth, no matter what culture you live in, is this. There is a God, he created you, and you are infinite.
I love that. And I would say that the diagram you just showed us shows how infinite we truly are. And that's something where you can start off with that, and then you can test it. You can test that theory out. And so far throughout the course of history, we've only found ways to strengthen that theory, that we are infinite. We have never found a finite limit for ourselves. Right. And if we keep searching, we're never going to find one. In my opinion, We're never going to find a limit, because as long as we're still here breathing, as long as we're still doing what I would consider the Lord's work, then we're always going to keep going. And the only way to counteract that is to just be complacent and just stand still. And I think that we'd be doing a detriment to the future of humanity, the detriment to ourselves, and it's especially a detriment to God to try to sit in these places that we're at and say that we're all set in stone. We know the known universe. We know our limits, and we should just play in this little safe playpen and not explore the stars or even explore inside the earth or within ourselves. So I love that. Do you want to head to time travel, or do you want to continue?
Yeah, we can. So let's use this framework that we've been talking about to talk about time travel, because this can apply to any topic we want to talk about. So I'll start with my opinion, and that is that time travel is possible. Okay. But when I talk to the experts that are colleagues of mine about time travel, they say the way to think about it, at least based on the latest that we think we know, is cycle hopping.
Yes.
So some people will say, well, there's this dimension, that dimension, and we want to, move to that dimension, or you can move back in time or forward in time. My opinion is that we are in a temporal dimension where we observe time like a river, and you can never go back. The river is flowing, you're flowing in it, and you can never go back and recreate the exact molecules, or maybe you can, but we haven't figured out how. But there's an intuition deep inside people and experiences that they've had where it seems that time travel is possible. So we need to be open to that. The question is whether it can be done in a way where we can discover technology so it can be done safely and effectively. And then we have to ask the other questions about our psychology. Is it smart to do that? If, let's say, we discover stargates that we can build with simple technology and jump to any time period or any dimension or whatever we discover we can do. How smart is it to do that? And if you do it, what kind of self-control and discipline do you need to have to not mess yourself up or others? Because again, this is an opinion that God created heaven and earth for us as a playground, and he's put us in that constellation in a way where we can pursue happiness in the way we experience it now. So if you, let's say you discover a way to time travel and you jump through that Stargate to another time, are you going to find happiness there more than you can find happiness here? Are you going to be able to worship God and glorify God the way you can do it here? You've been put here for a reason. And it goes back to an old saying I like, and that is, the grass is always greener on the other side until you get over there and find out it's artificial turf. And in this case, maybe if you get over there, you can't get back, and now you're stuck with something that's not real. But this humility where I'm open to the fact that time travel could exist. I just have never seen anybody do it or describe it or figure it out. But I know that the way our bodies are wired at the inner space level, meaning the cycles of our, every cell is rotating around the sun and growing in a way that is part of a cycle. We as a human species are part of a cycle, and that cycle is at the cellular level and it's at the celestial level. And if, the question is, if we break that cycle, what is going to happen? If we jump to a different cycle in time, what does that do to our cycle? Or the analogy would be, and again, I don't know if this is true or not, but you have a tree. It's a magnificent tree, okay? Its roots are important. If you pull that tree up out of the ground, it's going to die. Our roots are part of our cellular structure and the cycles where we are interconnected with the universe, both celestial and atomic. If we pull the roots out of our existence, this happy place called Mother Earth, if we pull our roots out because we want to travel to a different dimension with different frequencies, different vibrations, different cycles at the cellular level, would we be pulling up the roots of our happiness where God has planted us here to enjoy the fruits of life on Mother Earth. So these are really important questions to ask. Over to you before I get to some practical stuff on time travel and really explain what I mean when people have heard me say, we already know how to get anywhere from on planet Earth in less than an hour. I'll talk about that later. But I want you to react to this comment about time travel, our internal atomic cycles and how we're connected to the sun, the orbit of the sun, the growth of the cells, and our own roots, if you will, in this existence that God has created for our happiness.
I will definitely do that. And speaking of the sun, I'm going to go put this cover over the shade because I just started getting completely shut out by the sun. I love it though.
That's okay. Well, it's because I started talking about the sun, you know?
Yeah. It's
And
funny because
the sun wants to say something here.
exactly, the sun said, I have something to say. So that was perfect, perfect timing for that, because one side of my face was starting to warm up. The other side of my face was starting to cool down because of the contrast. But what it was doing is it's balancing out my internal body temperature. If you're traveling back into time or going forward in time, the sun has changed. The chemical makeup of the air has changed. The people that you're around, we don't have to say diseases, but just the different biological makeup of the people of that time period, all of that is affected and it's changed. And people have done this before where they pick up trees, they'll keep them somewhat alive, or they'll keep them alive, or they'll start to die off and they'll move them to another place, put them into the ground. And trees are resourceful. They'll reroot, they'll be able to grow again. But some trees can't do that. You can't just take a tree that's in a tropical climate, take it up to the Arctic area, dig it into some dirt underneath the snow, and then expect it to grow. That's not going to happen. And I think that for us, when it comes to time travel, my question is, I don't think that it would be considered trying to play God, but how much are we throwing off God's beautiful, perfect design by trying to do things that were not truly intended? So my question with time travel is how that's one of the, I guess it's almost a paradox for me, is if we go back in time or we go forward in time to make something better, are we making it better, or are we changing something that was already perfect? Because even though it may not have been the way that we wanted it to be, we wish that the Nazi regime had never taken over Germany. Of course, we wish the Imperial Japanese had never bombed Pearl Harbor. But would America be the country that it is today without those experiences? I don't think it would be.
Yeah. So, my opinion on that is that I want people to explore. I think God gave us intellectual curiosity to poke our nose in all places, and it doesn't really matter. For example, back in the day when nobody could figure out how to make an airplane, the common refrain globally was, if God intended us to fly, he would have given us wings. And there were people saying, do not mess with this because it's witchcraft. It's going to get you in trouble. And had we not been willing to push, where would we be? So God, I believe, in my opinion, God gave us this aggressive sense of learning and intellectual curiosity and the desire to discover and to explore for a reason. And that's how we grow. That's how we learn. And again, this universe, both inner space and outer space, is our playground. So I want people to try. But then this is where the good thinking, the critical thinking comes in. Okay, let's say I discover a way to crack into a different time zone. Now I ask those other questions. Do I want to do this? How do I test this without screwing things up? What I want to do. But my opinion is the universe is resilient enough to withstand any stupid human trick. Okay. That even our Earth and the environment is strong enough to overcome. Now we may not exist in it again,
Yeah, that's the problem.
But Mother Nature will win. Okay.
Oh yeah.
It is so much more powerful than the human being, which is part of God's, I think, brilliant universe. Where, and that's why I say those words: be kind to Mother Nature, meaning the universe, and be kind to human nature, meaning people that God has made infinite, that we want to take care of. We have a responsibility. And again, from the Bible, this is a responsibility. Love your neighbor like yourself. But it's actually the proper quote is, love your neighbor as God says, as I have loved you. So that's an even taller order, because there are people that don't like themselves very much. And I don't want them to love somebody else like they love themselves if they're going to take their own life or they're going to hurt themselves. I want, God's true desire is that we love one another as God loves us. And that's that pure agape love that that knows no bounds and can forgive anything. So with that, let me dispel a nice rumor that goes around there where, at the Hillsdale speech or many of the different podcasts I've done, I talk about the fact that we have technology today that can allow us to get anywhere on the planet in less than an hour. And so you could take off from where you live in Georgia and be in Singapore in 37 minutes, have lunch, and be back home before the kids come home from school or whatever,
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, he's talking about teleporters, like in Star Trek, or he's talking about Stargates and all these technologies that the military has that, can do things that we don't know about. And again, I can neither confirm nor deny all of those things, but I will start with that same premise, is that, in my opinion, these things are possible. The question is, will we figure it out as a human race? And should we do it if we can do it? And these are the moral questions and the wisdom questions. Even though you can jump into a volcano, you don't, because it's not going to be healthy for you. Okay.
Right.
We know how to do it. We just try not to because it's not healthy. We figured that out. But let me get to the and I've showed this video before on Space Revolution, but I'm going to show it again because this is one of those frequently asked questions. Oh, Steve Kwast is talking about teleporting, or he's talking about Stargate. No, what I'm talking about is something much more boring. And before I show this video, I want to tell you that what you're going to see is something that Elon Musk put out, because this is what he will be able to do soon. But it has already been done. In the early 90s, there's a military program that had a vertical takeoff vehicle that could take off and go supersonic and then land again, just like it took off, in a way that allows people to ride in it, just like you ride in an airplane. So let me go ahead and show this, and I'll kind of talk to it a little bit as we go. But can you see that screen?
Yes, I can see it. Okay,
so I'm going to hit play here. And just watch it closely. And if you can look at this, look at the time and the cities. But I'm going to voice over, because if somebody is just listening to this and cannot see the video, what you're watching is a video where the people are going out to a bar.
Excuse me, can we pause it real quick?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So we can't hear you very well, so you might want to just mute the audio, because you were cutting in and out. Yeah, that's
okay, yeah. And the music is good, but you can listen to. You can go to YouTube and just search. You just search "Reach Anywhere on Earth in Under an Hour," Elon Musk, and it'll show you this. Okay. So here we go. But thanks for that tip. I appreciate it. So you're watching a picture of New York City, and what's happening here is some people are going out onto a barge. And they're taking a little boat, like a ferry boat, out to a launch pad that's in the New York Harbor. Okay. And they're getting on one of Elon Musk's starships. And they take an elevator up and they sit in a chair. If you've ever been to the Kennedy Space Museum in Cape Canaveral, you can go in and sit in a simulator, just like the space shuttle, and sit in there and then feel what it feels like to take off in the space shuttle if you were in a seat. So here you are taking off. And remember, this has been done in the early 90s before. You just didn't know about it. Now this is taking off and it's boosting. And that first rocket engine is going to now detach from the cockpit where the 100 people are flying. And that engine is going to go back and land right where it took off, just like you've seen Elon Musk do many times before. Now that's moving at look at the speed, 27,000 kilometers per hour. Wow. Okay, so it's moving from New York City to Singapore in about 37 minutes. And now it's coming down, and it only takes about 5 minutes to land from orbit. And it's here in 39 minutes from to Shanghai. Okay, and now the people get out, they take a ferry into downtown Shanghai. Here you're going from Hong Kong to Singapore in 24 minutes, Los Angeles to Tokyo in 27 minutes, Bangkok to Dubai in 27 minutes, and it goes on and on and on. And the bottom line is you can get anywhere on the planet most places in less than 30 minutes, and anywhere on the planet in under an hour. So that is not developmental technology. That is technology we already proved in the early 90s. The only difference is the commercial market did not commercialize it. In other words,
Right.
they didn't turn it into a aircraft until Elon Musk. He plans on doing this. And before you know it, it will be pedestrian, meaning when the airplane was first invented, nobody wanted to fly on it because it was dangerous, it was expensive, and it was like useless because there weren't any airports. Where do you land, you know? But now, look, there's airports everywhere. It's safe, and it's safer than driving in your car. The same will be true with this, except it'll happen much faster than the airplane because we are in the age of acceleration. So the reason that can happen is because in space, there's no air molecules to slow you down. In the air, the airplane has to push through air molecules, and that's why you have the heat, okay, and why it's hard to go supersonic.
Oh.
So think of a fish, okay? A fish can only swim so fast because the molecules in the water are pretty thick. But a flying fish jumps out of the water and goes through the air and can go a hell of a lot faster. An airplane is like a fish in water. It can only go so fast because the air molecules are there. And if you take it up to space, there are 0 air molecules to get in your way. And now you can go as fast as you want, and you can get anywhere in seconds.
That makes me think of the jumping salmon in a river. So the river is flowing, we'll say, from the source down to wherever it's going to. And these salmon, when they jump out of the water, they cover so much more ground. Distance. They cover such a further distance because when they're in the air, they're already going with the momentum of the river. They're going out where they have less resistance, and then when they come back down, they're even further along.
Yeah, that's another good analogy because we, and this gets back to the inner space and outer space. There are elements everywhere. So dark matter, even in space, there's radiation, which is stuff, and that stuff can be a propellant. It can be an inhibitor. I mean, there's just so much creativity that the human brain can put into doing things that are useful and novel. So getting anywhere on the planet is useful and novel. Novel in the sense we don't do it regularly. Useful in the sense that time is money. And if I'm a business person and for the same price as a first class ticket, I don't have to travel 17 hours to get to Sydney, Australia, but I can be there in 41 minutes. I'm going to do it. And now I get a lot of work done and I can sleep in my own bed at night.
Well, that made me think of, we were talking about human beings. I'm thinking about resources. Say there's somebody that's in Singapore that needs a life-saving surgery and they only have the heart in Los Angeles, or not Los Angeles, New York. You get that heart there in 37 or however long it was, 37 minutes.
Yeah.
That could save a life.
Oh, hell yes. Yeah.
Wow.
The transportation and the speed of transportation has always been a game changer economically. And it has so many applications. And that's one of the great ones is that you can now have anything anywhere. In fact, there's a company out there that's actually marketing their supersonic. Some of the engineers that did that work in the 90s for the military that proved this technology is something we can use. They started a company specifically to deliver organs so that you have a global population of 8+ billion people. And if a little child needs a heart in Tampa, Florida, and that other child and the other child lives in central Kyrgyzstan, you can pick that heart up and deliver it to the child both trips in less than an hour.
That's fascinating. That ties into another thing that I saw in your episode 8 was you were talking about us needing to be, our American values needing to be in the forefront of this because that same thing could be used for evil. It could be used to take weapons from one area to another or send payloads of some type of explosive at high or supersonic speeds. I mean, that's kind of something that we've been dealing with, talking about what's going on in Iran and things like that. Is President Trump has made it to where our technology is, and I'm stealing a little bit of this from you, but he's taking it where our technology is so advanced that our enemies are they don't even want to fight us anymore because they know that they can't win.
That's true. So this is another pattern through history as we talk about the space revolution, and the things that people normally think about when they think about space, as in outer space. any new technology there's always a dialogue amongst people that are reasonable about, is this the right thing to do? So, the Federalist Papers arguing over whether we should have a Navy or not. But when the airplane was invented in 1903 by the Wright brothers, there were articles in the publications of the time. It was still fake news back then, but still basically saying that it is immoral to build an aircraft because somebody could transport a bomb and drop it on your head. And while that is true, it's only if it's in the hands of evil people, right? Or people that are, so in the hands of good people, you have the potential of doing what the airplane has done. And that is, it has changed the global economy. It has uplifted the human condition, and it has made us more prosperous, more secure, and healthier because of the speed of transportation through the air. The same is going to be true with this in space. But this is why we all have to be on guard. Why this movement to retake our power as the people of America is so important, because we have the power of guiding our politicians for the policies that keep us healthy and safe and use technology for benevolent good things and not for bad evil things. And we have the power to shape our economy to use these technologies for good things and not for evil things. We do not have to live with the global corporations that are doing evil things. We don't have to stand for it. We, the people, have the power. And so this gets back to what we believe and why our founding fathers said, no constitution, no government can stand if the people are not moral. The Constitution is not the defender of a bright future. It is our moral foundation. And the moral foundation has to be rooted in a worldview that is moral. And the worldview goes back to my opinion. There is one God. This is the worldview. There is one God. He loves you infinitely. He has made you an infinite creature, and he has given you an infinite universe, both in outer space and inner space, to explore, to make your fellow man happier, healthier, and more prosperous. And the fact that we are looking at a world where our children are less wealthy than we are, less healthy than we are, and less secure than we are, is an evidence of the fact that we have been hijacked as a human race. And this is what President Trump is breaking us out of globally, and what Badlands is doing to try to wake up Americans and take back their power. It is infinitely important, or our children and grandchildren will continue to be slaves and be imprisoned by these ideologies that are evil, like the one you mentioned, where it's 3%. The deep state wanted to cut the population down to 3% of what it is now, so that there's enough food for everybody and enough space for everybody. Well, believe me, the problem is not having enough space. All you have to do is fly over the country and look at all the desolate areas out there.
Yeah.
The failure is in our imagination to break out of the shackles we have been put in and let people invent ways of living anywhere, like the water company that can pull water out of the air anywhere, Genesis Systems. In fact, they just landed a big deal with the military to deliver water cubes to any military facility anywhere on the planet. So you don't need to haul fuel and water to the troops, because a lot of soldiers and airmen and Marines die carrying water to the troops. And nuclear power, where you can have a remote nuclear power plant anywhere in any deployed location, and you don't have to bring fuel anymore. Yeah. And now you save lives, and it's clean energy. And the spent uranium at the end of the life of that nuclear power plant, now with low-cost access to space that Elon Musk has created, we can just throw it on a rocket and send it in the sun. The sun will just devour that spent uranium rod and send it back to us in the form of free, clean energy. It's just, God's universe is so sustainable. And all we have to do as a human race is get our brains engaged with designing reasonable, sustainable solutions, and not let the deep state hijack the word sustainable, where it becomes a bad word. Okay. No, it's going back to what the Bible says. Be good stewards of this universe that God has given us.
Yes. And I got a couple things from what you were just saying, but one of the things I was just thinking of was at the beginning of the episode when you were saying we were talking about space, and you said you can define a word any way that you want. They've hijacked the definitions of these words. They've hijacked the definition of sustainability, of anything having to do with loving nature, loving the planet. They come out with the Green New Deal and all these different things, trying to fearmonger us into believing that our resources are finite. And from the diagram that you showed at the beginning, I mean, the fact that we are so small, or not small, but relatively, we're a small part compared to the vastness of space as a whole. I just can't believe that anything is finite to the point where we have to kill off people to be able to have enough resources for people to live. If anything, I would say that the more babies we have, the more people we have on this planet, the more that we, in a loving way, take over this planet, control more parts of this planet as a human race, not as one. I mean, I would love for our nation to be in the lead. I think we need to be because of our values, but the more that we explore our world, the outer space, the inner space, the better off humanity is going to be, because there's going to be a child that was born that would not have been born if we went the other direction. There's going to be a child that's born that comes up with the way for us to time travel. I guarantee you. It may not be the way that we think about it now, but somebody is going to invent that one day, and they probably haven't been born yet. And how are they going to be born if we kill off the population? We have to do the opposite. We have to build. We have to invest in our youth and in adults that are already out there doing the things, because there are physicists out there. There are biologists out there. There are even people that are just philosophical types that are thinking up these ideas. They're using their imagination and using the laws of nature and the laws of God to be able to rack their brain for what's the next innovative thing that we can do.
Yeah, no, it is a beautiful thing, and I agree that this world is and this universe has plenty of room for everybody, and be fruitful and multiply was not a joke. It was serious. Okay, and the more people we have that have a worldview that is moral, the better off humanity is going to be. And the trend line is actually good. There are more people in health, prosperity, and security now than ever before, per capita. In other words, more people in health, security, and prosperity per capita than ever before in the history of mankind. Now, because there are 8 billion people sitting on the planet, there's still too many people in poverty, ill health, and insecurity. But that's where we come in, and technology can help with that. So this embracing of the good, where you don't kill a human being, this principle of discovery and exploration and technology being the friend of humanity if we stick to our morals, and raise our children to believe in the moral foundation of the human spirit, that you have to have morals, and those morals can only come if you have a worldview that that defines those values. So one of the things I want to do on these space revolutions is always plant a few questions for people, because one of the things we haven't touched on in this episode yet is the psychology of this journey, which you are an expert at. And so in addition to the book, I want you to mention all the books that you've mentioned to me for people, and then we'll put them into the comments and the chat so people can look at them later and put them on their reading list. But this journey will only be successful if we are willing to explore and learn in areas that you might not even be interested in learning. So all our listeners here, many of them are technical people that want to hear just about the technology, like the one I showed where we had that technology to do vertical takeoff and landing and go anywhere on the planet in the early 90s, and nobody knew about it because it was classified, and now it's not. And now it's being commercialized, so it's going to be useful to everybody, not just the military. But if we are not willing to reach out and explore areas that we might not be thinking of, like the psychology of the human being in regards to the groups that we belong to, both in the family, the community, the state, the nation, how we interrelate with other cultures, so we maintain the spice of life, which is the the fact that there's many different diverse cultures and languages and foods and clothing and music. What kind of questions would you pose to our listeners to that they can be asking themselves along this journey? And then I want you to mention the books you talked about.
Okay. So the first thing that I would ask anybody, and this is because it's something that I did probably from when I hit 30 years old, about 6 years ago, I'm 36, till now. I developed it a little bit earlier, but what are your morals? What are your moral values? What is your center? Because I know that not everybody that's listening may know God or truly believe in God. You may be one of those people that uses the universe as a substitute for God, which I'm just letting you know, if you're using the universe as a substitute for God, you're doing yourself a disservice, because it's God. If you're talking about the universe, that's God, because God created the universe. But leaving that aside, what are your moral values? Where do you draw inspiration from? Where do you draw your faith from? And if you don't feel like you have any faith, what grounds you? What's your reasoning? What's your purpose for being here? So what's your moral framework? And think it out. I would write it down if you can, but even if you don't write it down, come up with a few key phrases, just to kind of describe how you view the world, how you view yourself, and how you view your place in the world. So what are your values? What are your morals? What do you want to contribute to society? Because I assume that everybody listening wants to contribute in some way. And I'm not going to knock it. I'm very different than a lot of people. I will not bully you. I will not make you feel bad if you feel like I don't want to do anything. If you're a doomer out there, I wish that you wouldn't be. But I understand there are people that are out there like that. But what do you want to contribute to society? And if you don't have anything you want to contribute, what can you do to make something better? You don't have to think in the big picture. Just think of something small. What's something you can do today to make life better for yourself, your family, somebody around you? And I think the third question would be, let's see. Now, actually, those are good. I think those are two good ones because they're kind of layered questions.
Those are very good. In fact, one of the things I reflect on as you make those pose those questions is how God teaches us that He changes the world one person at a time, one small act of kindness. If you give this cup of water to a thirsty child or a thirsty person in my name, that's what changes the world. It's not the arrogance that thinks, oh, well, if I'm president, then I'm more important or I'm doing bigger things is not true to history. What is true to history is one act of kindness, whether it's to, the kitty cat that walks up to your front door or the dog that's out in the backyard or your neighbor, your friend, your family, being kind. So I love your questions. And they really get to the core of if we want this space revolution to be successful and do things that make us happy, healthy, prosperous, and secure, we start with those questions in everybody, and we have a fighting chance. So I appreciate that. Now, talk to me a little bit about the books that you recommended.
Okay. So I think I'm pretty sure I have this in the right order. I'm going to go in order from the oldest book to the newest one. I believe that The Alchemist was actually, I'm not sure if The Alchemist or The Prophet was written first, but I'm going to go with The Alchemist. So The Alchemist was very interesting way that I read that book. So we had moved it into this house I think it was like 2016 or something like that. And I was just sitting out. At the time, it was just myself and Jackie. And it wasn't fully done or anything like that. So we're in the house and I just go outside one day. It's a beautiful day outside. And I'm just like, man, I've been watching a lot of TV. I've been watching movies. I haven't read a book in a long time. Let me pick up a book. So I find The Alchemist. I had this book. People had suggested it to me. I sat out in the driveway, and it's a short book. I read the whole thing in probably like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was the fastest I've ever read a book. It was the most engaged I've ever been in a book. And it was a very interesting book. I'm not going to spoil it too much for people, but don't let the name shake you. Yes, there is stuff about alchemy in it. But what I got from the book was it was about a man's journey or a boy's journey, Santiago. And he had this dream. He had this dream. He was under a tree and he had this dream. And so he just went off and attacked that dream. And along the way, he hit troubles. It's a typical hero story, but I want to spoil it, but I'm not going to. But the point that I'm trying to make is that this book to me was just evidence of, it was a writer's way of giving evidence to the glory and the wonders of God, because God will take you on all these different journeys. If you listen to him, if you're quiet in certain moments, if you fight in other moments, you'll eventually get to where you're supposed to be. And you have no idea where you're going to be when you start off your journey, but by the end, it all makes sense. But the key for Santiago was he kept moving forward. He kept following his dream, his passion, and listening to, for him, it was the wind at times, it was to wise people, but all of it was just different ways that God was just dropping little bits of information and giving him stepping stones to his next journey. So that's what I'd say about The Alchemist.
Okay.
And the prophet's a little different. It's more of a collection of it's like poetries. It's like a poor man's version of maybe like Psalms or something like that. Like it's lessons, you know. But it talks about everything from love, marriage, good and evil. And it's basically a gentleman that he's going off on a journey, and he's like considered kind of a wise man, a prophet of his area. And people are asking him, they come all around to see him off, and they're asking him about good and evil. They're asking him about life and death and things like that. And he gives you, he starts to kind of talk about them in a poetic way. And he doesn't really give you an answer, but as you read them, you start to develop your own answers. So for me, I feel like when I read it and one of my buddies read it, we didn't discuss it, but I'm assuming that when he read it, he got a completely different take from it than I did, but the message is still the same. And again, it's God's way of giving us information in a different way. That's what I got from it.
It's beautiful. And, you know, it comes down to without love, any journey is rotten. The fruit is rotten without love. Yeah. And as the Bible says, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. And if you watch episode 1, you know, you start realizing that actually love and consciousness is, you know, shapes time and space and matter. That time, space, and matter are not solid. They are fungible based on love and consciousness. So I appreciate that book, and I like it too for the same reason.
Absolutely. And then the last one, I'll give you a short version of this one. Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. That one's a more recent book. That one was fascinating to me because it's more correlation than causation, because he's really just taking different studies and lining up what's made successful people in the past. And there's all kinds of factors. But one of the things that I really hung on was hard work is very important. Hard work gets you certain places. You have to work hard to be able to get to a certain level of success, but it's opportunity that was the real decider. It's, are you in a situation that will breed opportunity? And you don't have to be wealthy. You can come from a low income family. You can come from a poor area of the world. You can come from a world that doesn't have technology, but are you in the right place at the right time during that right moment in history to make a difference? And that comes full circle back to what I was saying about having babies and people, humanity progressing along and having more people, because the more people we have, the more opportunities we have. The more opportunities we have, the more we breed more opportunities for each other. It's exponential growth, like you were saying with technology, but just for humans. So I would definitely check out that book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. But that one is a little different than the other two because it's less of a novel. It's more of like a breakdown of how we've gotten here.
Yeah, no, that's good. Oh, I appreciate that. Those are good. Okay, so as I look through the chat, and there's one question that came up that I've gotten before, but I want to address it real quick. Somebody asking, how do we protect ourselves from radiation when we're out in space? And the answer is, space does have radiation. You have to protect yourself, and if you don't, it's not good for the human race. For me, the journey is to design a journey into space where the human body is not put at risk. So, for example, we have shielding. We know how to shield radiation. So you live in a habitat in space that has no radiation. We just didn't build the International Space Station or the Apollo missions with that kind of shielding because it can be heavy. But now that we have these technologies to be able to lift heavier weights into space, we can build things that make it safe for human beings. So, for me, that's another one of these things where people take risk and reward. And risk and reward are, that judgment is based on everything you just said, Cam. How well you know yourself, how well you understand your relationship with inner space and outer space, how you understand your relationship with other people, how you were loving one another as God loves you, how you love yourself. So why would you ever put somebody in harm's way when you don't have to? And we know how to do this where we don't have to. Or if we do, it's for short periods of time where it doesn't do that much damage. So I wanted to just answer that question because it came up from one of the listeners today, and I wanted to address that. So Cam, I want to tell you, again, the purpose of this Space Revolution podcast is to kind of set the conditions for the right questions, give some homework for people to read. And it's both reading about the technology and it's reading about yourself, so that this journey is like the art of war, or I say the art of peace, where know your enemy and know yourself. In 1,000 battles, you will not fail. But more importantly, if you know your enemy, which is usually yourself, and you know yourself, you never have to fire a shot. You never have to be violent. You never have to do something that is immoral, like kill another human being to solve a problem of food scarcity. Food scarcity is not because there's too many people. It's a lack of imagination or people that just don't care about other people. So there are so many beautiful things about our future that we should be so excited about. Technology does change fate. And this Space Revolution podcast is about exploring those technologies and exploring how we, as the American people, take our power back and make sure that the politics and the economy of America ushers in the golden age in a way where technology prevents conflict, prevents death, and gets us into a place where more people on this planet are living in peace, prosperity, and health. So Cam, thank you for helping be a co-host this week. I look forward to having you on again as we explore more and more topics. And my promise to you is that in the next handful of years, we will be able to ride on a rocket that you saw at the beginning of this show anywhere on the planet in less than an hour. And so I'll take you out to lunch in Bangkok, Thailand.
That sounds awesome. And I will definitely take you up on that. And if you don't mind me saying one thing that I would like to leave people with, and you can correct me or change it if you want to, because obviously this is your show, but I would tell people, for all those people, especially the ones that are questioning outer space and the solar system and everything, focus on inner space first. If that's such a hard concept to understand, focus on inner space first here on this planet, within your body, within your soul and your spirit. Focus on inner space, and I think you'll be able to start to understand outer space better.
Oh, that's a great comment. And thank you so much for your wisdom, Cam, at such a young age. You got this life thing figured out. So keep it up and, keep working on it. It's never perfect, but I really respect you and have a lot of admiration for the way your brain learns and the way you help other people.
Thank you so much, General Kwast, and thank you for having me, and you have a great evening.
Yeah, you too. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Today, we remember those who gave everything. And memory is never still.
This Memorial Day! One hero, one mission to deliver softness to America!
No, Chi-Chi, we can't stop your snacks, dude. We have to deliver all of these soft disclosure gift cards.
He goes by Zach Payne.
The motion detector!
Hey, stop fighting over the beer brush.
Life finds a way.
Hydrate your elbows! Moisturize your soul! Feel the rhythm together! Makes you feel alive and let the lotion roll!
Hit it.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.